So today I've come down to the Stainford Canal in Thorn, where I fish the majority of my matches during the winter season. I've just come to run you through my sort of basic attack in the winter. Normally, even when it's so cold on this canal, you generally get bites on most baits what you fish. So I'm going to run you through the couple of baits that I use and hopefully catch a few fish. So I'm going to run you through the bait that I'm going to use today on the canal. I've kept it quite simple. All I've brought is some casters, which don't need too many casters, pint and a half, that's all you need, and some liquidised bread. They're my two main baits that I'm going to use on the canal today. The casters I'll just cup in as they are, straight from the tackle shop, and the bread, obviously liquidise your bread at home, and then I bring some gravel, some fine gravel that I can't remember where I got it from. I think I got it from abroad, but any sort of gravel that just gives you a bit of weight to get the bread to sink. And I usually liquidise the bread the night before and obviously fetch it to the bank and it's all nice and fluffy and soft, and then add my gravel to it on the morning. I like to start with I always like to have a ratio of what to go with, and 2 pints of bread to a pot full of gravel is about right, I think. And I'll be introducing it to my swim in balls. The one thing I will say is when I introduce the balls to my peg, a really tightly squeezed ball of bread. One, because none of it will come off until it gets to the bottom. 2, the weight of the gravel in the bread will get to obviously make it sink. And when it gets to the bottom, the gravel will help the bread break up. Because if you just moulded a ball of bread that hard without any gravel in it, it'd just stay like that, I'm sure it would. The other bait that I've got is some dendrobinas and some small redworms from the hook. Sometimes if the canal's fishing a little bit harder, I'll fish a line in the edge, which will be sort of 3-4 foot deep, and I'll cup a small few pieces of chopped worms in that obviously I've chopped at the start of the match, and fish with a small piece of redworm over the top to try and catch a few perch if it's difficult, but hopefully today I won't have to do that. Right, I'm going to run you through the rigs that I'm going to use today. My first rig is a 0.8 John Francois, which I'm going to use in my bread rig. It's about 8 foot deep. I'm using a 3 elastic. So obviously I'm going to fish this at 11 metres. And this is going to be main line, my starting line. This is where I hope to catch a few fish, put a few fish in my net before I go out onto the other lines. The rig is on 012 main line, running down to it's got a 0.6 Olivet, a couple of shot underneath, and 3 number 10 droppers to 6-inch hook length of 0.7 fluorocarbon. And this is going to be my starting rig. It's got a 20 hook on, nice and small. I'm going to use a 4-5mm puncher bread. And to start that line off, I'll be cupping in 1 ball of bread, tightly squeezed like I said, and I will be starting on that line. I'll be going straight in on it after I've fed my other lines. The second rig I'll be using today is for my caster line, which is at 15 to 16 metres out, going up the slope a little bit on the far bank. The float of choice will be a MAP WD3 4x14. It's got a plastic bristle and a wire stem. It's quite sensitive, nice for seeing them big fish bites. Same again, main line 012, running down to us. Obviously it's not as a bigger float, so a small spread bulker shot with 3 number 11 droppers this time, nice and slow so that caster falls in, and a bit longer hook length, a 10-inch hook length, same again, 0.7, and I like to fish nice and light, and a 20 hook again, 20 B511. One other thing I will say about my caster rig, don't fish too much over depth, only maybe 3 or 4 inches maximum. And what I do think is vital is having some back shot. When the canal moves a little bit, or there's a little bit of skim, if you don't get your float to sit and fall in the water right so your hook bait falls nice, you don't catch as many fish as you could do. So 2 number 8s placed, 1 a foot above the float, next one 6 inches, then a foot to your pole tip. You hold this shot on the water and it lets your float go in without really having to hold on to your float. This line I'll be feeding from a big pot on the end of my pole, just my cupping kit, and I like to introduce maybe 20 to 30 casters at the start of the match. I know it might not seem a lot, but I've played about quite a lot on this canal, and feeding more bait than less bait is definitely worse. So I'll be feeding 20 or 30 at the start, fishing my bread, and every 20 minutes cupping in another 20 to 30 just to keep that line going until I go onto it. Rig number 3 is the same float as my caster line, but a smaller size, a 4x10, and this is for fishing for the perch in the edge. Hopefully I don't have to pick this rig up, but the rig, same main line again, small blocker shot and 2 droppers and a light hook length of 20 hook again for a small little piece of redworm. One thing I will say is that I like to fish a 5 elastic on that short line. Even though you're only fishing for little perch, that little strike with a number 5 elastic definitely sets you up better than fishing a little light elastic. So I've cut my ball of bread in at the start of the match and then fed my other lines. I've started on a 4mm punch of bread, and let's see if we get a bite. Into a fish straight away. Sometimes a fish can start off a little bit small, as that one was, but in general bread's so instant, it's such a good starting bait. Put some fish in the net. When I'm putting my rig in, I like to get the olivet over the top of where I've fed my ball, lay my line in a bit of a nest. Obviously it's sinking quite fast because it's olivet and quite heavy rig, and then just lower my float in the last sort of 8 inches. Let everything straighten out just so that you're dead direct to everything. So we've been fishing for a little while now and it's just slowed off. So I'm probably looking to introduce another, maybe not quite as big a ball as I fed at the start, but another smaller ball, see if I can kickstart it off again. One thing I will say about bread punch fishing is always got to keep your bread punch loaded, ready for when you come back in after catching another fish. It makes it so much faster than looking in your bread, punching a hole out, then hooking it, then chipping out. If you're doing it while you sat waiting for a bite, it saves some time and you can put more fish in the net. Loaded bread punch, straight on, keep it in your hand, chip out to the 11 metres where you're going to fish. It sort of becomes second nature. As I'm lowering my rig in, just punch the bread, it's ready for your next chuck. When you do get a bite, I see a lot of anglers strike and then drop the pole tip down so it goes slack, and this results in sometimes fish coming off the hook, or maybe when you go to swing a fish in, it coming off. If you keep everything dead tight and swing to the side as when you ship back, it keeps everything nice and tight and you don't really lose many fish. Thought that one was guaranteed to come off. So after fishing bread for around an hour now, thought I'd give myself a chance of going on this caster line. It seems to be fishing quite well. I'm catching plenty of fish on bread, so if this was obviously in a match, I'd want to be looking to catch some bigger fish or potentially looking to build a bigger weight by catching some better fish. So have a look on this cast line, see if we catch some. I like to lift my rig up and lay just my droppers and my shot directly over where I'm going to fish, put my line in a nest, and then get them back shots on the top of the water, holding my float on the, you can see it's on a slight angle, so that when my bulk's set, them droppers will just be falling in nice and slow. This definitely fetches you lots of bites, other than just plonking it in. As you can see, the caster fish prove a little bit bigger than the bred fish. You don't mind waiting a little bit longer for one of those. So we're getting on in the session now, and after fishing bred to start with and casters longer, the bred line's gone a little bit and I can't really get many fish on it. So the cast line's still alright, but I need to rest it. So the other line where I can come and rest is this perch line, which is over the edge of the weed. This is a good line just to rest the line, even maybe when you were fishing your bred and casters weren't very good and you wanted somewhere to come. This is always a good place to come, and there's always a few fish lurking around these weeds. Small piece of red worm and just jigging the float along, just tempting the little perch. I fed this line at the start, just my cupping kit, a small, really small dollop of worms, just chopped dendrobinas, and 3 or 4 casters, nothing at all. I'm sure that when them worms go on the bottom, there's a bit of scent, the perch just hang around over the top of them. It's a great line just to keep dropping on. Sometimes in the match you can catch 20 and 20 goes, or you could catch 1. It's a great line just to have a little rest on. There we go. See if you can put 5 or 6 of them in the net when you're not putting anything in the net on any other line. It's 5 or 6 ounce that you could have missed out on. by coming on that short perch line and giving this cast line a rest, it seems to let the fish settle back over, and we're catching a few more fish now. So it just goes to show a little rest on that short line doesn't do it any harm. Well, we've had a lovely day on the canal today. It just goes to show that by keeping it nice and simple and not fetching too many different baits, that you can catch a lovely net of fish. Hopefully you can get out on the bank and catch a similar net of fish like this too.